Welcome to Know Your Legacy podcast. I'm your host, Vipul Basania, and today's guest is Travis Chappell. Travis is an entrepreneur and the host of the Build Your Network podcast. Having only started in 2017, he's interviewed some of the most legendary individuals on the planet, like Grant and Elena Cardone, Ed Mylett, Jack Canfield. I mean, the list goes on. And since then, he's been able to teach others how to build their personal and professional lives in regards to growing their inner circle so that they can thrive in those areas that they choose. So Travis, thank you so much for spending some time today.
Yeah, of course. Vipul, thanks so much for having me on the show, man.
No problem at all. So first off, what's the reason you chose to live in Vegas? Because I know you do most of your stuff from out of there.
Yeah, there was a couple of reasons. So I'm from the LA area, but not the glamorous part of LA. Like it's from like the really horrible part of LA. So it's a little town called Lancaster is where I grew up, right next to Palmdale. It's about an hour outside of Los Angeles in like northern LA County. So it's like the high desert of SoCal. So the landscape out in Vegas is very similar to how it is in Lancaster and Palmdale, but the area of Lancaster Palmdale is a lot worse than it is out here in Vegas. So I lived in California and I lived in LA County. So I got all the benefits of high state income taxes and all that good stuff, but without any of the perks, without living in a really nice area and having gorgeous weather all the time. So basically just decided, hey, why not just go somewhere else where I get the same weather, but I don't have to pay as much money. So zero state income tax was a huge reason. And then my podcast is all about networking and connections and stuff like that. And Vegas is a great place to do that with people. Everybody's always in and out of Vegas. There's always a convention, an event. There's something going on here. And I like being in the middle of that. So there's a couple of the bigger reasons I moved out here.
Yeah, that makes sense because I came out to Thrive for the first time just a few weeks back. I know you were there as well. And that was actually my first time in the US and in Vegas.
Oh, so no way.
Crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. And I just felt the buzz being there in Vegas. So I know what it's like to be around a community where there's just constantly, new people that you want to get to know and get to meet. That's like the place to be when there's an event like that being held. So, no, go on.
Yeah, no, that's I was going to totally agree with that. That's like one of the bigger reasons that I ended up moving here.
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of just going back to something that you said, I think this was in one of the other interviews that you may have done, but you said personal development for you was about becoming a better person so that you could make better decisions. And I'm curious to know, what decisions has it helped you make in your life?
Oh, man. Basically everything that I've done since I started doing it. It's been a result of the person that I've become from all of the different things that I've consumed and implemented into my life. I mean, that a lot of people think that personal development is like this like magic pill almost, where like if I read this book, I'm going to learn that one thing that's just going to turn my life around completely. And that's really usually not how it goes. It's really it's a journey. Like it's a journey that never ends. It's a continuous journey of self-improvement and self-development that makes you into a person that can now decide the things that you need to decide, that can handle the things that you need to handle, that can make the decisions that you need to make, whether they be really difficult decisions or really easy decisions, to have the conversations that you should have. I think that your level of income is directly correlated to the amount of the number of difficult conversations that you can have comfortably. And there's so many different things that would have held me back from a lot of the things that I do now had I not just jumped into personal development and really went for it.
There's so many different areas that I think it helps because there's so many different areas to your mind as well that you need to develop in order to get to where you need to be. And so I guess it just helps you get a different perspective. So I'm curious, what you just mentioned in regards to being able to have difficult conversations in a more comfortable manner. Like, what are some of the conversations you've had to have, not only with yourself, but maybe with others as well, for you to get to that next level?
Yeah. So there's been a lot of different things recently in some different businesses that I've been involved with that have required difficult conversations, whether it be to a customer or to somebody that works with me or for me. And then even more recently, having conversations with people that I feel like are on a different level that I'm on, and being able to come into that conversation with confidence and deliver the conversation as if we are equals, as if we're just friends, and not like this is some person that's way above me. All of those are three specific examples of some difficult conversations that I've had to have recently. And some of them been brought on by some of my own mistakes, give you a quick example. So a few months ago, I was running a water business and I had sales reps come in, and I had brought in a sales manager that I was paying money to, that basically, after talking to an accountant, he said, "You're paying too much money. You're going to have to do something and lower that pay. You can't afford to do that anymore." And I was really ambitious when I started the company, and it was a mistake that I had made. So I had to really own up to that mistake, and I had to sit down and have a conversation with the guy and just be like, "Hey man, this is totally my fault. There's nothing that you did. There's nothing that you could have done. It was totally my fault for being totally brand new and not realizing what it took in order to make this successful for both of us. So this is what it's going to look like going forward." Are those easy conversations to have? No, especially because the first couple of times I had those conversations a couple of years ago were with friends that I had brought into the business, and I had to sit down and explain to them how I had messed up and now it's going to cost us both money. And those are difficult conversations to have, and nobody wants to have those conversations. But if you can't learn to have those as successfully and comfortably, then I don't think that there's a way to get to the next level, to get to the higher levels, because difficult conversations and dealing with people is like a skill set that you definitely have to acquire.
What was the process you followed to actually step away, like be objective and not get your emotions involved? Because if it's something like your friends, like that's like there's a bit of a boundary then. It can become difficult to take that step back to think, actually, hang on, let me just look at this objectively, because I need to make this decision that's best for the business and not best for me, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I take a day now, man. When I first, so a couple of years ago, when I first started with it, I had a conversation or two with a guy, and I'm the kind of guy that likes to please people, especially friends. And so we got into a conversation, and after talking with him through the conversation, I felt like I wanted to reach an agreement right then, so there wouldn't be this awkward conflict between us. And so whatever he asked for, I was like, "Yeah, let's do it. Whatever's going to end this conversation, right?" And then like a week later, realized, dang, this is not going to end up working out. Like there's just zero chance I can pay this much money for this particular job. There's no way I can make it happen. So I had to sit down again and have another uncomfortable conversation with them. And from that point on, I just decided, you know what? Whatever happens, however somebody brings up a conversation and they're trying to renegotiate or they're trying to bring something to the table, and I have the ultimate control of what happens and what doesn't happen, I'm going to take a day to think about it. Even if I think that I have a pretty good solution right then in my head, I'm going to, depending on the importance of the conversation, of course, you don't want to take too much time on a smaller decision. But if it's a bigger decision that's going to affect you and a friend or business partner's outlook on what's happening in the business, then from that point on, I basically just said, you know what, if somebody brings something to me, I'm not going to give them an answer right away. I'm going to just keep asking them questions, keep getting a gauge for how they truly feel about it. Let them say their piece, and then I'm going to take a day, think about it, get to myself, make sure I'm not responding in my emotions, and make sure I'm responding how I want to respond, and with logic behind it, and a way with explanations behind what I'm doing, and that's helped tremendously.
Yeah, I think it's quite important not to allow yourself to get emotionally attached, but it can be easily done when you're so involved in that situation, especially if it's like with loved ones. Yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult to take yourself out of those situations, but it's crucial. It's
Have,
crucial.
have you found yourself having to do that outside of the business world as well? So whether it's personal relationships or it's health or something along those lines. So just so that people can relate to, like, say, people that don't have a business right now, how can they have those difficult objective conversations to improve other areas of their life?
Yeah, I mean, it's 100% necessary in a marriage, in a long-term relationship. You can't get away from it. Like, some of my friendships, but like some of my best friends, like we don't really talk a lot about all the conflict and stuff, because usually like my best friends are a way for me to escape, kind of, you know what I mean? Like I have really good friends from the time I was 3 or 4 years old, and they're like my boys, like my brothers. So when I get around them, I don't really feel like dumping all my problems out onto them. Like I just want to have a good time and hang out and just talk about nothing, and maybe even play some video games and eat some pizza, drink some beer, like just do something like that. It's just me and my buddies, right? But if it's like a long-term relationship, like the person that you're spending the rest of your life with, like you have to have those difficult conversations, just like you would in a business partnership. Your life partner has to be the same exact way. And so yeah, it's 100% helped my marriage to be able to sit down and have a frank conversation with my wife. It's difficult for me to have a frank conversation with people, like in general, like talking about anything serious, but especially when it comes to emotional things, because I'm not an emotional dude. So yeah, it's been a real learning curve to try to learn how to like sit down with my wife and actually have a conversation about how I'm feeling. Like that's super weird for me. But it's made a world of difference for our relationship and our marriage, for sure.
Yeah, now I want to make the connection, as you brought that up about emotions. Now I want to make the connection to, what you spend most of your time doing, which is networking. And obviously you've done that to a very successful level. Do you think you've had to evolve that side of your character? What I mean is the emotional side, so that you could build better rapport with these individuals to build that relationship.
Not necessarily. I don't think so. The if you're connecting with people on the level that I'm connecting with people, there's like, you're not going to have a very deep relationship with every single person that you meet. It's just impossible. It's impossible to do it. Um, so you're going to have quite a few relationships that you can try to keep digging deeper into. But chances are you're probably not going to sit down with, you know, Grant Cardone after you interview him and then talk about life and like the pursuit of happiness and like religion and like your deepest thoughts and feelings and desires and emotions. Like it's just not it's not happening. So you can get to know them and develop a friendship, and then maybe over the course of a decade you might be able to get close to somebody like that. But it's not really something that I've felt. Now, to caveat that, I'm not saying that you don't need emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is more important than anything. Being able to read emotions and understand people, like that's very important. But I don't think that you specifically need to be able to share your emotions in order to be able to connect with somebody better. I personally don't think that.
Mm, okay, fine. Yeah, I guess it's different based on your personality. That's interesting though, because I would say I fall more on the side of being naturally more emotional, and being in touch with that side of my personality. So it's interesting to see that on the other side, you can still be able to successfully build relationships without so much having that as your natural knack, so to speak. So
Mhm.
what, what would you say has made you a good networker? Like, what would you say are the two or three things that stand out to you when building this network?
Well, first of all, I think it's just because I've dedicated the last year and a half of my life to it. Honestly, like that's a huge thing. Is I've done like over 175 interviews now for my show, and that's a lot of people to pick their brains about networking and relationships and connecting and how to do it better. And even if I don't even study or listen to my own episodes, just having that much exposure to it, I mean, that's hours on hours on hours on hours that I've spent working on this craft in the last year and a half. But so I want to caveat what I'm about to say with that. There's a couple of actionable things that I think that I would attribute it to. Number one is I'm always looking to give without expecting anything in return. That's the most important thing in any networking connecting situation. You have to dig the well before you're thirsty. You can't have something come up and you're like, man, I really need this connection to interview my dream person, and I know that this guy that I met one time has a good relationship with that guy, so let me just ask this guy for an intro. right? You haven't built up any relationship capital. There's no deposits in that relationship bank. You can't make any withdrawals on that. So you got to dig the well before you're thirsty. You got to do things on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, that help you to be able to continuously build relationships and add value to other people. It's not about getting anything in return. It's not about building. It's not about looking at it transactionally and saying, like, if I do this for them, will they do this for me? It's just about literally adding value and contributing to other people. And that's like the most important thing. The second thing I would say is this: if you're trying to get on a level of that's above you, then sometimes you're going to have to pay to play. And especially if you're trying to explode your network, if you're trying to build your network in a short period of time, you're going to have to pay to play. These people, somebody like a John Lee Dumas that makes $2-3 million a year, pretty automated on his business in Puerto Rico. Like, he just doesn't have the time to be able to talk to a bunch of people for free all the time. So like what I did is I looked for an opportunity to get in close with him, and I paid the money to get around him. And now he's become a good friend, a fantastic mentor of mine, and who I've learned most of what I know about podcasting from, especially the business end of podcasting. But the initial way that I met him was I paid $6,500 for a weekend with him at his house in Puerto Rico. Just a weekend, 3 days. It wasn't like a year-long, mastermind program or a continuity thing. It was like literally 3 days at his house in Puerto Rico, $6,500 plus plane tickets and food. I was out like $8,000 for the weekend. And that was my initial conversation with John. But in order to get into that circle with which I had never messed with before, like I had never had any connections prior to that one thing, like, it was necessary for me to pay that money and get into that circle. But then when I got there, as I looked for more ways to add value to John, right? So paying somebody a bunch of money is one way to add value, but there were clearly 5 other people at that weekend mastermind that also saw the value in that and paid the money. So I wanted to be somebody that stuck out even further than that. So I volunteered to work a couple of his upcoming booths for 2 events that he was speaking at, where he was trying to sell his journals. So I went in and offered value to him and said, hey, I have a long history in door-to-door and retail sales. Let me come sell your journals for you. And he said, yeah, that'd be awesome. So I gave him the ability to walk around each event that he was speaking at, connect with people, talk with people, do his thing, do his business, while having somebody at the booth who he knew had a lot of sales experience and was working to hustle and sell some journals for him. So I put money in his pocket by paying him to go to his house and learn from him, but I also put money in his pocket by volunteering to sell stuff for him. And obviously at those events, when I was selling stuff for him, I got to know him a little bit better, got to know his girlfriend, Kate, a little bit better. And now I've been able to develop a really great relationship with the guy. But sometimes you got to pay to play, and not a lot of people are willing to pay. They're like, hey man, how did you connect with this person? Man, that's so cool. How did you get in touch with this person or that person? I'm like, oh yeah, I paid this much money. And they're like, oh yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that. It's like, okay, well then don't complain that you're not seeing any movement in your network. You know what I'm saying? Like you, if you don't put the time, energy, money, and focus into it, then it's not just going to grow and explode by itself. Now, like I said, you don't have to spend money to grow your network, but you have to spend money to explode your network. There's a really big difference between the two of those.
That last bit is quite powerful, because I guess that makes the difference between those who are quite stagnant in where they're at and those who are willing to go to the next level. It's just going to separate 2 different worlds, because there's a level that you can't access without having to pay, from what you're saying anyway. Can you give a few more examples to those who are listening about other ways that you've provided value, maybe for some of the other guests that you've had to bring on, or some of the relationships you've fostered outside of podcasting as well?
Yeah, so I'll go with Molly Bloom. I don't know if you've listened to her episode or saw her. Oh, you were at Thrive. You see her.
Thrive, yeah, I saw her speak, yeah.
So Molly was a girl that I reached out to multiple times to try to get her onto my show. She just has a fascinating story. If you're listening to this, just go watch the movie Molly's Game and thank me later. It's fantastic. And this is a movie that's made about her life. And so after I watched the movie, I just remember sitting there thinking like, man, I have to connect with this girl. I don't know how I'm going to, but I need to connect with her, because she's had her story is just freaking incredible. And so eventually got her on my show. It took me like almost 7 months, I think, to get her on my show. And then when I was done, I just said, hey, I'm surprised that you're not already all over the place in this like entrepreneurship, podcasting, YouTube show, public speaking world. Like you're just not even involved in any of this, because what you did was all through like a book being published, and then also through a movie with Sony Pictures and Aaron Sorkin writing it and all that kind of stuff. And so like it was a totally different world that she was super successful in that sense. But I've noticed that a lot of my entrepreneurial friends didn't know who she was, which was mind blowing to me. And so I said, if you're cool with it, is it okay if I make a couple of introductions for you to some people that I think would be valuable? And she said, yeah, for sure. I would love that. And so that was a great way for me to add value to Molly. So I went out and I introduced her to Jordan Harbinger from the Jordan Harbinger Show, and he used to be the Art of Charm podcast. He gets millions of downloads on his show every single month. So I introduced her to him, and she's going on his show. I think the episode is releasing next month sometime, like October or probably like November, like mid to late November. Her episode on Jordan Harbinger's show is releasing. She's going to be doing an interview with Ed Mylett, because I introduced her to Ed, and he's going to have her at his house in Laguna to do an interview. And then I introduced her to Cole and Sonia Hatter, which eventually got her up on the stage at Thrive in front of 1,200 people. So I've just looked for ways to add value. And all those things are win-wins for all of those people, because Molly's a valuable connection, and the people that I introduced Molly to is valuable for her, because not only are they good people to know, and not only do they do well in business, but they also have large audiences of people to get Molly's message in front of again. And so that would be another way. That's another way that I've looked to add value to people.
Yeah, no, that sounds like that's actually quite a surprising story, because I didn't expect that to be the case. Because there were a couple of people at Thrive that actually told me that, I think it was Cole actually who said on stage that you were the one that introduced, made that connection. So, I mean, for your personal life outside of podcasting, is there any connections that you've made that you did unexpectedly? So like, you didn't think that you'd make that connection, but you ended up making it in a way that you didn't really think that would happen.
It's difficult to say outside of podcasting, because a lot of the relationships that I've fostered and built have been in that world since I started doing this like a year and a half ago. So it's difficult to say, because I would say that probably the majority of the connections that I make now are in that world, not really outside of that. Okay. And if they are outside of that, they're brought inside of that very quickly. Okay. If that makes sense. Like that's a way for me to build rapport and credibility with people. So it's something really quick and easy that I can, talk about or show them that brings them into that world. So I wouldn't be able to answer that question super effectively.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense. I think because it's your main focus, you're bringing everyone in to be a part of that world rather than keeping them outside of it. What would you say are a few of the things that you've learned from all the guests that you've had on? Because you've had guests, from a variety of different backgrounds, all who've spoken to you in regards to the space of networking and how they've built their influential circle. What would you say are two or three of the things that you've taken away that you didn't expect them to say?
Yeah, the thing that I said earlier, give without expecting anything in return. That's one of the biggest things. I would say that self-confidence is basically key to almost every bit of success you'll ever have. So building self-confidence, like that's been one of my biggest takeaways over the last year, is how to do that effectively. And I have plenty of episodes on this, but the number one way, hands down, is by keeping the promises that you make to yourself. And I think that was a fantastic lesson for me to learn, but also to be able to tell to other people, because it seems such an abstract concept, like self-confidence. Oh, how do I do that? How do I get self-confidence? I'm super insecure. I don't believe in myself. How do I build that? How do I work that muscle out? And the best way to do it, hands down, is by keeping the promises that you make to yourself. Because if you have a bad relationship with yourself, then you're going to have a bad relationship with other people. People are really intuitive, and they can tell that if you don't even believe in yourself, so why should they even believe in you? Right? So like, you don't have to get people to believe what you believe. You just have to get people to believe that you believe what you believe. if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Hang on one second. My dog is barking.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll have to edit. You'll have to edit that
No,
out.
that's cool, man.
But yeah, those are probably a couple of the two biggest things that I've learned.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to say as well, I think just based off the confidence point you're making, like it all comes down to your tone of voice, like how you sound when you're coming across to that person as well, because I guess they can feel it, especially your guests when they come on, because they're super high level. They want to see that, you know, you're, I guess, sure in yourself and confident in yourself to be able to conduct that interview in a way that's going to bring value not only to them, but to your audience as well. So have you ever felt nervous, or what are the thoughts that go through your mind when you've got someone like Jack Canfield on just before you're about to go on, let's say like 5 minutes before? What's going through your head?
That's a good question, man. The biggest thing going through my head is how much I prepared for it. That's my biggest way to defeat any sort of limiting beliefs I have about myself when I go into those conversations is to prepare beforehand. If you're over prepared, then your level of nervousness goes way down. And that goes for interviews, that goes for public speaking, that goes for any of those, all of the above. Your confidence in yourself shoots through the roof if you're extremely prepared for something like that. And so, especially those bigger interviews where I know I'm going to be kind of nervous and really anxious to try to get the best info that I can out of them and try to leave a good taste in their mouth, so to speak. Preparation is the biggest key.
It's interesting because then you look at people like Larry King. I don't know if you've looked at his interview style, like some of the interviews that he's done where people have asked him, you know, how do you interview and, you know, what's your style? And he's the complete opposite. He's like, I don't prepare. I prefer it just live. Like, you know, just don't even tell me who the guy is. And he lets his curiosity lead. And it's funny because then you get people like yourself who prepare. You've got Tom Bilyeu who prepares, like Jordan Harbinger. I know that they're all individuals who love to prepare super. And then you've got people on the other side who are like midway. They don't want to prepare too much because they want to leave some mystery in the conversation. So it's interesting to see a mix.
Here's the thing, though. I think that if you asked Larry King what he did when he first started, I'm sure he would tell you he prepared a lot. The reason he doesn't have to prepare anymore now is because he's like the OG of interviewing. Like he is probably the best ever, or definitely one of the best ever. And so like taking what he says and then just being like, yeah, I'll just do that is kind of, it's like learning basketball from LeBron James. Like everything that he does is just on a different level. Like you can't really take like LeBron's workouts and put them into like, you know, his warm up dunks. You can't really just start warming up with those. You know what I'm saying? It's just a totally different level. But yeah, I do agree. Yeah, that there are a few people that I know that that are pretty good interviewers and they don't prepare as much. But the best interviewers that I know are always extremely prepared, like Jordan Harbinger and Tom Bilyeu, like you were just saying. But yeah, totally.
Exactly. So, I mean, just to take it back in terms of your story now, just to peel back the layers a little bit, I think you said that you were brought up with parents who were into real estate, if I'm not wrong. So,
yeah,
I guess they were super into entrepreneurship and having that mindset of you know, growing and constantly getting better, and I guess making the curve go upwards and to the right, so to speak. What's it like growing up in a household that surrounds you with that sort of energy every day?
Yeah, it's interesting, man. I don't know if I would necessarily say it was like an entrepreneurship household. I was in real estate, but that was about it. So like it was more like he was a salesperson. He was never really like building businesses or starting up things or anything like that.
Okay.
And then my mom was very traditional in the sense that she didn't really like him taking a ton of risk. So when he wanted to take some risk and, you know, expand his real estate business, she would be really timid and it would hold him back a little bit. So I will say though, that they instilled in me a mindset that says like, if you really want to do something, you can do it type thing. That's the biggest thing that I'm thankful for the way that I was raised, is that my parents we're always saying like, hey, look, if you really want to do it, then you can do it. You know what I mean? There's nothing that can stand in your way if you really believe that you can actually make it happen. And so I'm very appreciative of that one thing, because I think other than confidence, mindset is the other thing that matters the most. Is that your mindset has to be one that allows you to be able to dream and think and move yourself forward, and then to have the confidence that allows you to move to the next level. And I think that was probably the biggest thing that I took away from growing up in my house, in that household, was that if I really wanted to see something done, that I could actually do it. You know what I mean? That there was no level of income that was out of reach if I didn't, if I put in the work to get there.
So one of the things that I know you mentioned elsewhere was that you weren't super into personal development and building your mindset and fostering that level of growth for yourself early on. That only came later on. So what was the thing that sort of triggered you to think, right, I need to like get myself into this mode because no one else is going to do it for me or teach me?
Yeah. So my parents tried to get me to read and stuff growing up. Just never liked it. I hated it. Honestly, I didn't really enjoy it at all. And so when I first started looking to getting into personal development, it was basically built on like my back was kind of against the wall, so to speak. So I had come off my best year to that point. I was like 22 or 23, and I just made the first like 6 figures in a year that I ever had. And it was in door-to-door sales. And I got to the end of that year and went to the beginning of the next year and started thinking about what my future looked like. And I should have been super stoked, right? Like, oh man, I'm 22. I want to say 23. I think I turned 23 in the middle of that year in August. But so, it's 23 years old, made 6 figures. Like, you think I'd be like, man, like future's bright. Like, this is going to be awesome. Just keep hammering away at this industry and blah, blah, blah. But I just would look 5 years, 10 years into the future and go like, man, I don't know if I want to be knocking doors at this point. Like, I don't know if this is the industry that I'm meant to be in or that I really want to end up in. And my back was kind of against the wall because I was just in this place of like, I'm totally unmotivated to do this thing that I've made decent money doing. And I kind of like, am I going to just start from scratch? Like, what am I going to do? I literally thought about everything at that point. I thought about like, do I go be a firefighter? Do I go, become a FBI agent or a police officer? Like literally all the thoughts that a 14-year-old kid has is what I started thinking at that time, just because I had no idea what I wanted to do or where I wanted to end up. And so I started just diving into personal development, reading books, listening to audiobooks, YouTube videos, podcasts, like anything that I get my hands on. And that's what really sparked that interest in me. And then that's when I found Entrepreneur on Fire with John Lee Dumas, and figured out that like, man, I think I really want to start a podcast. And that's kind of where it all came from.
What do you think caused you to lose the motivation? Like, why do you think you lost the motivation at that point?
Because I'm very much a future thinker. And if I can't see where I'm going, then I get really nervous about it. So like, I felt like I'd already hit the ceiling in the company that I was working. Like if I worked my butt off, like if I just worked and like put in twice the amount of hours that I was doing that year that I pulled 6 figures, I might've been able to increase my income by like 50%, maybe 75%. Like, but that was it. And I knew that if I did that next year, like when I was 23 going on 24, if I would have done that another year, then at the end of that year, I would have hit the ceiling at 24 years old. And like, that was super scary to me because obviously I was still pretty young to have hit the ceiling where I was. And I was like, if I'm going to hit the ceiling that fast, then I got to do something different so that the ceiling moves way up. So I don't spend any more time spinning my wheels and trying to accomplish something that I don't even want to accomplish.
Yeah, I guess when you put it that way, it just makes sense because so many people, I think, don't think that far ahead, or they don't take the time to reflect on it, and so they
Nope.
they get there when it's too late, when they've hit the ceiling. and then they
Exactly.
realize, oh crap, I'm in the wrong place. So I guess you jumped out at the right time.
But the thing, and that, yeah, exactly. Because the thing is, once you hit that ceiling, like you almost feel trapped to that success, because if you start over doing something different, your income's going to plummet. Like if you go up to 175 to $200,000 income, then when it goes back down, because you're starting over, you're going to be really upset about that, and it's totally demotivating for sure.
Was it a big jump for you then, from going from that level of achievement then to saying, you know what, I need to figure out what I want to do, and then figuring out that, okay, it's podcasting, and you got to start from day one, ground zero podcasting. What was that transition like?
Yeah, it was, I mean, not easy. I took a dip in income the year after that, because I was just trying to focus on like what I could do, like what was next for me. And so it wasn't easy, because I felt almost like an imposter. Like I'm telling people that I made this much money, but like now I don't, because I'm working on this other thing. But I just believed so much in the future that that people aren't willing to suffer now to build the future that they want. And I'm not that guy. I'm always willing to suffer now to build a better future for myself. Like, you know what I mean? Like I currently, I've made a good amount of money for how old I'm 26. I just turned 26 a month or two ago. I've made really good money for the age that I am. Most of the people that are my friends that make the kind of money that I make are out driving really nice cars or living in really nice places or something like that. I drive a used Camry, and my wife drives a electric Fiat that has $150 lease payment on it. Like I would rather not do any of that stuff now, so that in the future I can have whatever I really want to buy, if that makes sense. And
It's this the
I
stoic
think that
mindset, yeah.
yeah, delayed gratification is a principle that will always benefit those who actually take part in it.
Yeah.
And I think that there's actually quite a bit of science to back that up too.
Yeah, I don't think enough people understand that principle, because we're in a society now where people just want things now, and I don't know if it's the conditioning we've been given, or if it's the environment or the friends that we're around. I guess it's a combination of everything, but it's just the fact that we don't want to delay it because we want to feel good now, rather than
Mhm.
thinking, let me take the time to think, if I give this up now, what can I actually get later on? And
Mhm.
it seems like, 26 is really, it's an amazing age to get what you've got, because I'm 26 as well. I'm trying to strive for what I'm trying to strive for. So it's good to see someone at that level who's actually reached that goal by thinking, right, let me take a dip. Doesn't matter what I look like. I'm not going to get my ego involved. I'm actually going towards a plan that I've set for myself, and I'm going to walk down that path regardless of, anyone else that tries to give me different directions. I don't know
Yep.
if that's what was going through your head.
Yeah, that's 100% it, man. Like it's there's just too much, especially now with our current culture. There's too much of this push for gratification in the present, because you see everybody's highlights on social media, right? Like you see your friend or your coworker driving that cool car or going to that cool place, and like, look, I'm not about like saving every penny that you make. Like I'm going to Bali and Australia next week for like 3 weeks, and then I'm going on a Mediterranean cruise with my family for Christmas at the end of the year. Like I'm not saying that you can't do anything and you must save everything. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that if you can put off different things until later, and you're willing to take a dip in what you look like right now in order to make those things happen in the future, then I think that you're going to be way ahead of the curve in a decade from now. Life is really, really long. Everybody's always talking about how short life is. And like, I get it. It is short on the timeline of like eternity and on the timeline of like how long the world has existed and all that kind of stuff. I understand that intrinsically it's a short period of time, but we all think that and know that, but the way that we behave makes it seem like it's here and then gone yesterday and today. Like that's not exactly true. Like I've lived 26 years. If I live like science says the length I should live, like it's going to be another 60 years that I have to make everything that I want to happen come true. So if I'm doing something right now that I don't want to do, or that I don't see myself doing in 10 years from now, why am I going to keep wasting time doing that? Now, obviously, I'm going to caveat that again by saying that if you don't have any money and you have your mortgage due next month, you can't just stop what you're doing because you don't like it. There's a level of practicality to what I just said. But I think there's also on the flip side of that, there should be more pressure on you to try to figure out something else if what you're doing right now doesn't excite you, or you don't think you're going to be doing it in the next decade.
I completely agree. It's interesting because I enjoy reading a lot of philosophy, and one of the things that Seneca says is life isn't short, but we make it so, and we make it so by wasting so much of it, by doing dumb shit, and he makes a comparison to money as well. He says that with money, we spend it left, right, and center with anything. It doesn't matter. We'll spend it on dumb shit, but when it comes to with money, we won't spend it on anything. We're really stingy with our money, but with time, we'll spend it with whoever. You know, if your friends ask you to come out to the bar, you'll go to the bar. If you watch a reality TV show, you'll watch the next soccer game, but you won't guard your time as closely as you may guard your money, and that's the wrong way around to have it, essentially, I guess.
Totally. 100%. That goes back. So sorry to interrupt you.
No, go for it.
That goes back to what I was saying earlier about the pay to play thing. That's because I value time more than money, because I know I can make money back. So investing $8,000 into myself, because that's what it is. It's an investment. It's not an expense. Because investing $8,000 into myself and to a relationship with John Lee Dumas, I saw how much that shortened my runway of accomplishing what I wanted to accomplish. So it was worth that investment for me to save a ton of time on the back end that it would have taken me in order to build the relationships that I have now in just a way. It just would have taken a way longer period of time if I would not have invested the money. Like, most of the time you're going to have to choose one or the other. Sometimes you can do both. I did both. I invested a lot of time and a lot of money into building relationships, but I think that's why that why my show's been doing pretty well, is because the content that's on there is great, because of the guests that I've been able to bring on, because of the networking that I was able to do, because I spent so much time and energy focusing and money, focusing and working on that one thing. And so, yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that time is the real asset. Money can always be made back. Time cannot be made back. So I think that that's a really important observation to bring out.
Yeah, once people understand that concept, like about time, like it's literally like a grain of sand when you turn the sand timer over, and it's just going, dropping every single day, every single second. When you have that mental image ingrained in your mind, it's you don't want to waste time. Like anything that you think is going to emotionally drain you or take away your money, that's not worth it in the long run. It just doesn't fit the plan, so you just ignore it. Because there's too much to accomplish in the space of time that we have,
Yep.
So just to bring it around to a few bits of networking again before we go into the last few questions. When you obviously you've got yourself into the mindset of becoming a networker and fostering relationships and being open to meet new people, because you don't know who could be on the other side or who that person actually is. As simple as it sounds, what do you see when you see a stranger? Just when you're walking past a stranger?
An opportunity, just an opportunity to connect with another person. I think that we attribute too much like dollar amounts to people, and we don't attribute enough like personhood to people. Just the fact that it's another individual that you can connect with, and that could lead to a plethora of opportunities that you have no idea about. Like, that's really intriguing to me. That's why, like, some of my biggest networking tips are really small things, like keep a networking journal. Write down the name of a person that you meet on a daily basis. Do it for 30 days. And at the end, you'll have a list of 30 names and 30 phone numbers. Try to connect with those people over coffee over the next 3 months. You know what I'm saying? Like, just small things like that. Or go out to Starbucks and, like you and I, we from our homes and our laptops. And I'm sure a lot of your audience does the same. And if you're doing that one of these days, don't do it at home. just go out to Starbucks and do it, and then force yourself to get up and shake hands with 3 people that are at Starbucks and meet those people, get to know them a little bit, connect with them on social media and say, cool, see you around. Great talking with you. Like, it doesn't have to be this, like, here's my business card. Call me if you need, help on your next house purchase if you're a real estate agent or whatever it might be, right? It does not have to be transactional, it's relational. So I think that would be the way that I would sum it up, is just another opportunity to connect with the person.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, because you don't know how much value that person can actually hold until you break the ice and you actually introduce yourself and speak to them and find out what they're actually about. Because the way I see it, everyone has a story. Everyone's come from somewhere. They've met someone and they've got a bunch of experiences in a part of the world you may not have had. So it's an opportunity.
And it's not necessarily just the value that they have potentially that they could add to you. It's the value that you could add to them. Maybe you're a step ahead of them and maybe you have something that they need and you could really help out that person. And then you get to help a person in need. What did Zig Ziglar say? If you help enough people get what they want, you can have everything that you want. And so just look at it as another thing. Like, hey, look, I'm just helping this person out, like, might come back on you. Great. If not, whatever. Worst case scenario, you helped somebody. Like, that doesn't seem too bad of a worst case scenario.
Exactly. Yeah. And once you've fostered that relationship, so you've introduced yourself, you guys are speaking, you've helped each other, whatever it might be, how would you then go about following up to keep that relationship alive after that interaction? Not only on a basic level with a stranger, but someone like Grant Cardone or someone like Molly.
Good question. The first answer to the question is social media. It's powerful and you should use it to your advantage. Meaning, like, if it's somebody that you're really trying to connect with, just comment on their stuff, like their stuff, engage with them. Everybody's trying to get better engagement on social media these days. So if you can help them with that, they're always very appreciative of it. And then tailor your own social media to foster the connections. So ask more questions and get people involved and engaged, and then reply to every comment on a post. Like if you go look on my Facebook, the last couple of posts have been up 250 comments, 300 comments, 180 comments. And I go through and I reply to each and every single one of them because I want to make sure that person knows that I'm connecting with them and that I want to develop a relationship with them. So my follow-up is probably not as directed and on point as it should be. But I think that helps me create and foster a more real connection with people.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true. I think, again, it just comes back to providing value, right? So engaging with their posts, not expecting them to do it just for you, but helping them get further in what they're trying to achieve, which is a better brand, better recognition, and a better community for the individuals that they've got in their circle. So how would you then go about converting that into money, so to speak? So, for example, with the podcast, you've built up a number of guests, and it's obviously become quite a full-time thing for you. How would you then go about converting that into making money out of that for those who are trying to launch their own brand or their own podcast?
Again, it always starts with the value add. Just like Gary Vaynerchuk says, it's the jab, 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 and then the right hook. That's how it is. So my social media is full of jabs, engaging content, asking questions, valuable quotes, anything that I can think of that adds value to people or gets people to engage and comment and get to know each other back and forth. And then I provide a lot of free content, free value with my podcast, free value in my Facebook group, free stuff. So people get to know me, they get value from a lot of the stuff that I do. And then eventually, if I have a paid service like the mastermind that I have currently called Build Your Network Dynasty, when people find out about that, they just naturally have this question of like, oh, cool. If Travis gives this much value for free and all the free stuff he does, he must like really step it up for the people that pay for his time. And it's true. And so it becomes way less of push marketing and more of pull marketing when people are attracted to the things that you do because you've just helped them so much and they can't help but be attracted to the things that you do. Like that's where the real magic happens. And that's what John Lee Dumas is a master of, adding value to people and then having something on the back end to make a little bit of money off of it for his time and energy that he's put into it. Because he adds value to people for free all the time, every day. You can take a free course, you can get free content from his podcast, you can get free content from his website. Like, he publishes his income reports and gives you a breakdown of like how he spends his money and what it looks like and what profits he made. Like, he gives and gives and gives and gives and gives, and in the back end he has like, oh, and by the way, if you want to join this community and connect with me more, it's going to be a little bit of money because I give my energy to these people more than I do to people who don't pay me anything. And you're like, okay, that makes sense. So you jump in and you do it because you've gotten so much value from them. Gary Vaynerchuk is the master at this. That's why he gets best-selling books, because he gives value throughout the year for free on a daily, like an hourly basis, really. And he'll even tell you this, like his goal is to add so much value to people that they feel guilty if they don't buy something when he has an ask. So when he finally has an ask, he's jabbed so much that when he write hooks, people can't help but buy the thing that it is. So when he has like a $20 book that he comes out with, and you've gotten so much value from the free content that he's posted for the last 8 months straight, like you're like, yeah, I should probably buy this guy's book. I have no intention of reading it, but I just want to help him out because he's helped me out so much, right? Like that's the idea, is to give so much free, awesome, good value, good quality content away that people can't help but start paying you for stuff on the back end.
I love it. No, I love the fact that you've seen that that's the way to do it, and then you're actually going about doing that rather than just thinking, oh, I'm just going to, do my own thing and try and make a quick buck, which some people do try and do because they're like, well, I want to just try and turn this over overnight.
Exactly. I want to go spend $300,000 in Facebook ads and say, like, hire me as your coach. Yeah.
And fake followers as well, just to pump the numbers up. I know people who have, paid just to get like over 10K so they can get the swipe up link. And it's just like, I used to be in that mode.
To rent the Lamborghini. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely used to be in that mode about 2 years ago. Then my mindset changed to, hang on, like if you're getting fake numbers, and if you want, again, it comes back to your long-term plan. If you're trying to plan for the long term and you want a community, you don't have a community, even if you've got 1,000 followers, 100,000 followers, because they're not real people. They're robots. Right. They're fake. Like, so who's going to buy your stuff? It doesn't make sense. Right. So it just comes down to the long-term plan of what it is you want, and then being able to give up whatever you have to give up today, money, time, energy, resources, to then get that.
Mm-hmm. Yep, totally. It's really simple, man. Like, you come up with your goals, your vision, and your dreams, and then you just reverse engineer what it's going to take to be able to make those happen. And then you do it. And then if you can't do it, you adjust your goals, dreams, and vision to be able to do something to where it's like, okay, that's actually something that is within my reach, Like, I'm not saying that on a like limiting mindset type basis. I'm saying that on like okay, that's not even possible type basis. Because some things like if you realize that you're going to have to put in 50 hours of work every single day to make your dream come true, then like that's literally impossible. Like, there's only 24 hours in a day. So you're going to have to adjust some of your dreams and goals to be like, okay, realistically, I could put in probably 14 hours of work or 16 hours of work. I could probably do that for about a year. And then I'd have to scale back to 12 hours or 10 hours because I'd be burning out too much. So like, if I put in that much work, that's going to get me to this point. Am I okay with that goal? If so, great, go for it. If not, then adjust your goals and try to figure out other ways to make those dreams happen. Maybe it's hiring people, maybe it's investing money, maybe like whatever it might be. So it's really a simple thing. Just most people just don't take the time on a Sunday to take 4 or 5 hours and really figure it out.
Yeah, it's key what you just said at the end there. Sunday, like, we're not asking you to think about it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's like 4 or 5 hours on the day that you're not going to do anything apart from probably watch TV.
And that's one time. But that's one time. You know what I mean? Like, next Sunday, you don't have to do it for 5 hours because you took 5 hours last Sunday. All you have to do is think about it for 10, 15 minutes. Make sure that you're aligned and like that you're crushing it and that you're actually making progress toward those goals. Like, it's not something that takes 5 hours of every Sunday. Like, one Sunday, yes. Next Sunday, 15 minutes, make sure you're realigned and that like you're heading in the right direction. Then you're good. Watch TV, watch football, take a break. Like, spend time with your family, maybe do more work. Like if you're not on track to hitting your goals, whatever you want to do, but take the time to figure it out first.
Makes a lot of sense. So just to get into the last few questions, then these are 3 questions that I ask everyone. So I'm interested to see, what your perspective is on each of them. And the first one is, with everything that you've learned now, all the experiences and the knowledge you've gained up to 26, is there anything you tell the 18-year-old Travis?
Yeah, for sure. Invest in yourself faster. Join a mastermind immediately would be my goal. Would be my piece of advice. Like, join a mastermind immediately. I think if I would have joined a mastermind when I was 18 years old, like something that would have stretched my money and stretched my pocket a little bit, and I would have gotten into this space like 5 years ago, I'd be sitting very, very pretty right now. So I would tell myself to invest in yourself and to join a mastermind immediately.
For those who are listening, there are a few people, some of the audience is in that age group of 17 to 25. So for those who are listening who are not that, who are that age, sorry, make sure you're taking that on board and actually acting on that. Don't just listen to this, because we can't, like me and Travis cannot go back in time and do that. That's what we hope to do. So those who are listening can take the action now. Make the most of that time that you've got, the 6 or 7 years before you come to this age, because you'll jump that much further.
Mm-hmm.
So the next question is, if there's anything that you could write on a piece of paper, just a sentence that's going to go into a time capsule for 3 generations from now to read, what would you want them to read?
One statement.
Yeah.
It's a good question, man. That's a good question. I would have to say something about something about connecting with people. Not to be too cliche, but I would probably go with, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I would probably add something onto the end of that, but just to catch people's attention, because it's such an old phrase, but I just believe it so much. And I just think that there's so much truth to that statement. And that would be like the biggest thing that I would want to share with people, is like, develop relationships, develop connections, because it's really is not about what you know, it's about who you know.
I know that you ask most of your guests that question that come onto your show, and the more I've been thinking about it as I've been podcasting, the more that I've realized how true it is, especially coming to Thrive. Let's just take that as the most recent example. Like the individuals that you meet there, the information that they hold and the information you can share with them to help them elevate them is just on another level. Like, it just doesn't happen unless you show up and you interact with people who are from a different background, different walk of life, different experience, different resources, different money. Like, putting yourself in that room just elevates you in areas of your life you may not be able to do, which is different from just reading a book in that area, like that emotional involvement, if you see what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yep, totally.
And the last and final question is, you've come to the end of your life now, whatever age that might be, 90, 95, 100. What's the legacy you hope to leave behind?
I just want to leave a legacy that my family can be proud of. I think that it's difficult to say right now, because there's so much left of life. Right now, what that would look like is that Travis changed the way that we think about relationship building. Like, that's like my mission and my vision right now for my show and for what I'm doing with my brand and stuff, is to change the way that people build relationships and to do it the right way, instead of being really spammy and transactional and thinking of everybody as a number, instead of thinking about everybody as a person. And so that would be the legacy that I would say as of right now that I'd want to leave behind. But ultimately, as long as it's something that like will last throughout a couple generations of my family, and where, you know, my kids be able to talk about how proud they are of their dad, and my grandkids be able to talk about how proud they were of their grandpa, and stuff like that. So I think that that's super important to me, is to have a legacy that lasts, just that lasts beyond just my lifetime, and touches people that are outside of my family, but most importantly that are inside of my family.
That's amazing, man. And I think with everything you're doing at the moment, you're definitely on the way to achieving that. And as I always like to say to my audience, is we all have a short period of time to create something that's going to last a long period of time, and that's the goal eventually. You know, like the time you have here, you want to craft something, an idea, a resource, something that's going to last, you know, through the echoes of time after you're gone, so that you've left your footprint in a positive way. So.
Yeah.
No, I'm. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I appreciate your time and energy. If people want to follow up and listen to your podcast, or they want to find out more about you and your journey, where can they follow you? What's the best places?
Yeah, great question. For anything that you want to know about me, you can go to my website, travischappell.com. That's CHAPPELL. So travischappell.com. All my social sites are on there. You can connect with me in my Facebook group or on my Facebook page or profile, and then my Instagram as well. I spend a lot of time on Instagram and Facebook. Those are probably the two ones that I spend the most time on. So if you're listening to this, go ahead, screenshot this episode, upload it to your Instagram story, and tag me and Vipul. That way we can go say what's up to you in the direct messages over there. But yeah, travischappell.com. You can find obviously the link to the podcast. You can find all my social links, and that's where you can connect with me best.
Awesome, man. Now, thank you so much again for taking the time and effort to do this. And it'll be awesome to have you again on a year from now to see how you've improved and elevated in your life.
Be happy to, man. Thanks a lot for having me on.